There are stories that lie so deep in the soil of time that even wizards have forgotten them. Tales of a world where magic did not yet bow to Latin incantations or polished wands, where the first men and women who touched its essence did so with trembling awe, as though speaking to a living, breathing force. Before Hogwarts, before Merlin, before even the thought of schools and spellbooks, there was a primal sorcery, raw, untamed, and frightening in its simplicity. To imagine this magic before magic is to step beyond the world we know and into myth. In Tolkien's legendarium, the very fabric of reality is shaped not by spellcraft, but by song. The Ainur, divine beings older than the stars, brought creation itself into being through music. Each note, each harmony, was a shaping of existence, a command written into the bones of the cosmos. Here, magic was not separate from nature. It was nature. To sing was to create, and to create was to rule. Now step into the wizarding world. Even in Harry Potter's time, we hear whispers of ancient magic, spells that no one, not even Dumbledore, can fully explain. When Lily Potter's sacrifice shielded her son, it was not the result of a charm or curse from a textbook. It was the oldest form of magic, a binding of love, will, and destiny into something stronger than the killing curse itself. This was not taught. It was older than teaching. The question then arises, who were the first humans, or beings, to discover that words, emotions, and gestures could shape reality? Who whispered the first incantations before anyone had carved runes into stone or inked them into parchment? If Tolkien's Ainur sang the world into existence, and Rowling's wizards inherited echoes of ancient magic, might there have been sorcerers who bridged these myths, keepers of knowledge so primordial that their spells no longer survive except in fragments? The myths of our own world hint at such figures. In Mesopotamian texts, we hear of priests chanting words of power to command rivers to rise or fall. In Egypt, hieroglyphs were not just writing, but living magic. The carved word bound the spirit of what it named. In Norse legend, Odin discovered runes not as letters but as spells, torn from the very roots of Yggdrasil, each rune a fragment of cosmic truth. The wizarding world too bears these echoes. The incantations we know, Lumos, Expelliarmus, Avada Kedavra, are Latin because the language preserved a shard of this older, truer tongue. But what came before even Latin? What words did the first witches and wizards murmur when they dared to touch the living current of magic? Did they sing like the Ainur? Did they carve like Odin? Or did they discover, as Lily did, that magic is not always bound to language, but to the will of the heart? These are the forgotten spells. Not forgotten in the way a careless student misplaces a page in their textbook, but buried in the marrow of history itself. Hidden because they are too dangerous, too vast, or too sacred, and yet their traces remain. In Tolkien's world, Gandalf does not merely shout words of power, he speaks in tongues so ancient that mountains heed his voice. In Rowling's, we glimpse magic beyond spellcraft, the wards of Gringotts that defy thieves, the protective enchantments that surround Hogwarts, the veil in the Department of Mysteries. Each of these is a remnant, a clue that before wizardry was codified, magic was practiced in forms now alien to us. Some call it the deep magic, others the language of creation. But all agree, the first sorcerers knew power in a way that modern wizards can scarcely imagine. And so, our journey begins to walk the forgotten paths of the first wizards, to unearth the spells that shaped worlds, and to ask, what was lost when magic was tamed into classrooms and textbooks? What remains waiting, hidden in shadows, to be rediscovered? If the first sorcerers existed, then their greatest tool was not a wand, nor even a staff, but something far older and infinitely more dangerous: language itself. The idea that words hold power is as old as humanity. To name a thing is, in many traditions, to gain mastery over it. Ancient Egyptians carved hieroglyphs not as decoration, but as spells. Each symbol carried a fragment of divine essence. In Jewish mysticism, the sacred name of God was said to hold such power that to speak it aloud could alter reality. And in Norse legend, Odin did not learn magic from a teacher. He wrenched it from the fabric of the cosmos itself, discovering runes that were not just sounds, but laws of existence. This belief resonates across magical worlds. In Tolkien's Middle-earth, the elves understood language as a bridge between thought and creation. The very act of speaking Quenya or Sindarin was an act of shaping, for their words were closer to the original music of the Ainur. Gandalf's incantations are often less about formula and more about invoking names of power, words so ancient that they command respect from stone, flame, and shadow alike. Rowling's wizarding world mirrors this truth. Spells are not random syllables. They are carefully shaped incantations, often drawn from Latin or Greek roots, binding intention to sound. Lumos calls upon light, Expelliarmus upon disarming, and Avada Kedavra, perhaps the most chilling, descends from the Aramaic phrase Abhada Kedavra, let the thing be destroyed. Behind each spell is not mere tradition, but a buried memory of the time when words themselves were magic, not just conduits for it. But language in the wizarding world is more complex than the textbook incantations students learn at Hogwarts. There are whispers of true names, secret words that bind beings to the speaker's will. Consider Riddle's obsession with names. He abandoned Tom Riddle for Voldemort, a crafted incantation of power, for he believed names shaped destiny. Dumbledore, too, once remarked that fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself, a truth that echoes the ancient belief that to know the name of a force is to gain mastery over it. What makes this even more striking is that some magic seems to require no words at all. Dumbledore's legendary duels were often fought wordlessly, his gestures alone unleashing torrents of power. Harry himself used magic instinctively before knowing any spells, inflating his ant, regrowing his hair, vanishing glass at a zoo. This points to a primal truth. Incantations are scaffolding, not essence. The first sorcerers may not have spoken Latin or any tongue we would recognize. Instead, they likely drew upon the raw power of intent, binding it to sound only when the need arose to transmit, to teach, or to control. Tolkien's legendarium offers a parallel here. The more a language drifts from its source, the weaker it becomes. The black speech of Mordor was a deliberate corruption, designed to dominate and simplify. Quenya, by contrast, was preserved in its purity, echoing the first harmonies of creation. Is it any wonder, then, that Elvish song could heal wounds or bend trees to its will? In Rowling's world, perhaps the incantations we know, the Hogwarts curriculum of charms and hexes, are likewise degraded forms. Latin, though elegant, is but a fossil of the true speech of the first sorcerers. The spells we learn in the books are safe, bounded, tested. But behind them lies something older, something dangerous. Words that might not simply disarm an enemy, but erase them from memory. Not merely illuminate a room, but call down fire from the heavens. The question that lingers is this: did the first sorcerers discover these words or create them? Was language itself a gift of magic, or did humanity impose sound upon the ineffable? In Tolkien's cosmology, the Ainur sang first, and the world was made. In our myths, God spoke creation into being. In Rowling's hints, magic responds to intent, whether spoken or silent. The overlap is telling. It suggests that speech, at its deepest level, is not communication, but creation. And if that is true, then every wizard who raises a wand and utters an incantation is echoing the first song, the first spell, the first word. They are reaching back, perhaps unknowingly, to a time when words did not describe reality. They defined it. If language was the first tool of magic, then spells were its earliest instruments. Fragile, fleeting, and often dangerous beyond comprehension. But not all spells survive. Many have been lost, not merely forgotten, but erased from memory or deliberately hidden, because their power exceeded what even the greatest wizards could safely wield. Tolkien's world offers a lens into this concept. The valor shaped Arda with song, and even minor mistakes could echo for millennia. The dark melodies of Melkor corrupted, warped, and broke creation itself. Song could build mountains or destroy forests, bless a people or curse them with famine. Such power required not just intention, but mastery, a mastery that few could achieve without catastrophe. Magic, in its rawest form, was not neutral. It demanded wisdom, or it would consume the unwary. In Rowling's universe, we see glimpses of these lost arts. Consider spells so dangerous or morally complex that they are never taught. The unforgivable curses, ancient protections around the Philosopher's Stone, the enchantments guarding Gringotts, or the mysterious wards around Hogwarts' most secret spaces. These are echoes of the first spells, remnants of a time when magic was unpredictable even to its practitioners. Some of the oldest known lost spells may have resembled what modern wizards call deep magic. These were not simply formulas to produce fire or light, but commands over the fabric of reality itself. Perhaps the earliest sorcerers could summon storms with a word, bind creatures with a glance, or even influence fate. The magic of intention, unshackled by incantation or wand, could heal or harm on a scale modern wizards rarely imagine. The very idea of a lost spell carries a chilling implication. The first wizards wielded knowledge that was too powerful to survive. Stories of these spells exist only in fragments. In Middle-earth, the elves' crafting of rings, particularly the three, is a form of spellcraft that echoes this notion. The One Ring itself, forged by Sauron, contains the essence of lost knowledge, power so potent that a mere object could control minds across generations. In Harry Potter, Voldemort's Horcruxes echo a similar theme: lost arts of soul binding, forbidden alchemy, and the manipulation of life and death. Some spells were so profound that their very recitation could twist reality. It is said that the first sorcerers sometimes invoked these words with song or chant, rather than wand or gesture. Their magic responded to emotion, rhythm, and resonance, much like Tolkien's music of the Ainur, where a single note could create rivers, mountains, or sentient beings. Perhaps this is why modern wizards cannot reproduce these incantations. They lack the connection to the raw currents of creation, the attunement to forces that predate formalized wizardry. We also glimpse the danger of lost spells in minor surviving examples. Parseltongue, the snake-speaking tongue, is not just a language, but a form of command over life and death. It allows control over creatures few others can touch. Harry and Voldemort share this tongue, but even they cannot bend it to create worlds. It is a shadow of the true mastery the first sorcerers might have wielded. The very concept of deep magic on which Hogwarts protections are based, the unbreakable vow, the sacrificial shields, or the warding spells of ancient relics, hints at a foundation built upon knowledge that most wizards cannot hope to comprehend. Even today, traces remain. Ancient runes, hidden incantations, and lost texts, from Nicolas Flamel's journals to the black bindings in the Department of Mysteries, point to a time when spellcraft was not bound by rules. Wizards stumbled upon these remnants occasionally, but never mastered them completely. And some things are deliberately hidden. The first spells were often forbidden not because they were immoral, but because they were too dangerous. A wrong syllable, a misdirected intention, and reality itself could unravel. Lost spells also reveal a moral dimension. In Tolkien, Melkor's dark creations were born of desire, not necessity. Power without wisdom corrupted. In Rowling, we see the same through Voldemort. An obsession with life, domination, and immortality led to the creation of spells that destroyed not only others, but fragments of himself. The first sorcerers faced this dilemma as well. To wield lost magic responsibly required a mind capable of foresight, discipline, and humility, qualities rare even among the greatest wizards. Ultimately, lost spells remind us of something profound. Magic, in its truest form, is a dialogue with reality itself. It is not a toy, nor a tool, nor a simple game of words. It is an ancient conversation, one that the first sorcerers began long before Hogwarts existed, and that still echoes in the rarest acts of power we witness today. These spells are fragments of that dialogue, pieces of a language older than any school, older than any book, older than memory itself. If there is one figure who embodies the connection between the ancient raw magic of the first sorcerers and the structured wizardry that would later emerge at Hogwarts, it is Merlin. Half myth, half historical conjecture, Merlin is the living bridge between worlds, a wizard who existed in an age when magic was still wild, unpredictable, and in many ways divine. Tolkien's mythos helps us imagine what such a bridge entails. In the earliest days of Arda, the Ainur shaped creation through song, yet some of their melodies carried disharmony. Melkor's discord threatened the very harmony of the world, while the faithful Valor labored to weave creation into balance. In Rowling's terms, Merlin is akin to a Valar in miniature, a singular figure who tames chaos, codifies knowledge, and sets the boundaries for magic's safe use. Merlin's story, as told in medieval and Arthurian sources, places him at a time when kings ruled, yet the forces of magic ruled even more subtly through natural phenomena, prophecy, and the unseen currents that shaped human destiny. It was a time before wands were standardized, before Latin became the language of charms, before magical education was formalized. Spells were gestures, songs, or even mere thoughts of sufficient clarity and force. Merlin mastered these currents, bending them without breaking them. Consider how he might have worked. To modern wizards, a simple charm or curse is formulaic, a word, a flick, a gesture. Merlin, however, would have employed an intimate understanding of intention, resonance, and natural law. A spoken syllable could call rain to a drought-stricken field. A gesture could guide armies to victory. A chant could weave protection around a castle or a king. His magic, like the songs of the Ainur, was creative, adaptive, and profoundly dangerous. A single misstep could reshape the landscape or unravel the threads of human lives. Merlin's legacy is the codification of magic, the first steps toward what would become structured spellcraft. It is said he tutored the early kings of Britain, taught the principles of alchemy, and understood the deep magic of life, death, and the elements. He observed that magic, when left untamed, could be destructive. And so, he introduced systems, rules, and safeguards, early precursors to the charms and protections that centuries later would fill Hogwarts classrooms. Yet Merlin's work was not simply protective, it was visionary. He glimpsed the potential of human wizards to wield magic not merely as a force of destruction, but as a tool for creation, enlightenment, and moral choice. In Tolkien's parallel, one could compare him to Gandalf's role among men, a guide, a guardian, and a teacher who intervened subtly to steer events without violating free will. Like Gandalf, Merlin had to balance knowledge and restraint, to wield ancient power without succumbing to its temptations. The bridge Merlin built is also temporal. His influence spanned centuries, connecting the first whispers of spellcraft to the Hogwarts era. Ancient wards, secret libraries, and magical relics all bear traces of his guidance. Some scholars speculate that spells attributed to Merlin, long since forgotten, were templates for later incantations, simplified, codified versions of the first true magic. When Dumbledore studies charms or investigates enchantments beyond Hogwarts' curriculum, he is, in some sense, tracing Merlin's footsteps. But Merlin also serves as a warning. He understood that power without wisdom leads inevitably to corruption. The first sorcerers faced this danger daily. Their spells could reshape reality, yet human hearts are imperfect. Merlin's genius lay not just in his mastery, but in his prudence, his insistence on tempering raw magical potential with ethical consideration, a lesson still vital to wizards today. And so, Merlin stands at the threshold between worlds. He is the whisper of the first sorcerers in a world that has largely forgotten them, the living bridge between ancient song and structured spell, between instinct and instruction. Without Merlin, it is likely that much of magic as we know it, both the rules that protect and the rituals that empower, would have been lost, leaving wizards to navigate the chaos of a wild, untamed force. Merlin's story reminds us that the first sorcerers were not merely individuals who wielded power. They were custodians of a delicate balance. Through their insight and restraint, they set the stage for future generations, for Hogwarts, for the wizarding communities of the world, and for the echoes of magic that persist even in stories of prophecy, sacrifice, and courage. Magic, in its earliest form, was not safe, not neutral, and not forgiving. The first sorcerers wielded power that could heal or destroy, create or erase, and its consequences were often unpredictable. Unlike the structured spells of Hogwarts, ancient magic responded to will, emotion, and resonance, not to words or wands alone. A single misstep could unravel reality itself. Tolkien's world illustrates this vividly. Melkor's corrupting influence is a testament to what happens when power is pursued without restraint. His song of discord warped the natural order, reshaping Arda to suit his desire. Even those who acted with good intent, like the Valar, had to work with care, lest they inadvertently harm what they sought to protect. Magic at its rawest is both potent and perilous, demanding wisdom that few mortals or even immortals can claim. In Rowling, echoes of these dangers remain. Consider the Horcruxes. Voldemort's attempt to circumvent death demonstrates that ancient knowledge can be twisted into instruments of horror. These spells were not merely dangerous, they were morally corrupting, warping the soul of the wizard who dared to wield them. Similarly, protective enchantments like those guarding the Philosopher's Stone or Hogwarts' most secret chambers are remnants of deep magic. Spells designed to be far stronger than their users might fully comprehend. These protections exist precisely because ancient sorcery carries consequences beyond ordinary understanding. Some lost spells may have threatened reality itself. The first sorcerers reportedly could bend natural laws or controlling weather, binding life and death, even influencing fate. Such abilities blur the line between wizardry and godhood, and herein lies the greatest danger: power that exceeds the moral or emotional capacity of the wielder inevitably corrupts or backfires. Ethical considerations were not secondary. They were survival. Tolkien's Ainur sang harmonies to create life, but even the slightest discord could have catastrophic effects. In Rowling, wizards like Dumbledore exemplify restraint. He understands the danger of untamed magic and intervenes carefully, seeking to guide, protect, or limit its destructive potential. The first sorcerers had no such guides, relying solely on instinct, observation, and moral judgment, a fragile and often fatal endeavor. Even seemingly small ancient spells could be lethal. A minor mispronunciation or misdirected thought could shatter glass, kill livestock, or even harm allies. Some enchantments were self-protecting, designed to punish misuse, hide themselves, or erase memory. These safeguards reveal that the first magic was self-aware, capable of defending its secrets against those unready to bear its power. The danger extends beyond individuals. Communities exposed to unrestrained magic often suffered consequences spanning generations. In Tolkien, the shadow of Melkor's discord lingers for ages, shaping entire cultures and lands. In the wizarding world, families like the Gaunts, who dabbled in dark arts, demonstrate how obsession with forbidden knowledge can curse lineages. The first sorcerers learned quickly that magic, when misused, does not only punish the user, it ripples outward, touching the innocent and altering history itself. Yet, even with these perils, traces of ancient magic persist. They linger in lost wards, in forgotten artifacts, in spells whose purpose modern wizards only partly understand. These remnants are invitations and warnings alike. They beckon the curious while cautioning the unprepared. To touch such magic is to step into a conversation that began before schools, before textbooks, before civilization itself. A conversation in which the stakes are nothing less than creation and destruction. And so, the first sorcerers made a choice: to hide, codify, or ban their greatest spells. Some vanished entirely, taking their knowledge with them. Others passed fragments down through careful instruction, giving rise to structured magic, charms, and enchantments that we now take for granted. What remains is a delicate balance, power that is sufficient for daily use, but restrained enough not to unmake the world. The lesson is clear. Ancient sorcery is not a playground. It is a domain of profound responsibility, demanding mastery of intent, emotion, and understanding. The first wizards taught us that magic is as dangerous as it is wondrous, a force that rewards wisdom and punishes hubris. Though the first sorcerers vanished into the mists of time, their magic has not entirely disappeared. Like a distant melody carried on the wind, it lingers in fragments, traces embedded in spells, wards, artifacts, and even in the instincts of wizards themselves. These echoes remind us that while magic has been tamed, it was never fully contained. Consider Hogwarts, a school built to teach order in magic. Its very foundations are alive with enchantments older than the castle itself. The moving staircases, hidden passages, and protective wards do more than serve students. They preserve lessons from the first wizards, subtle safeguards against the unintended consequences of untamed power. The Sorting Hat itself is more than a magical artifact. It contains centuries of wisdom, carefully codifying character and intent, a modern echo of ancient discernment. Even spells familiar to students may carry hints of deeper, older power. Protego shields, Fidelius charm, or Muffliato are not merely tools. They are refined remnants of the first sorcerer's attempts to manipulate the fabric of reality with precision and care. The simplicity of modern spellwork masks a lineage of profound experimentation, a history in which one misstep could have shattered lives or even entire communities. Artifacts, too, carry echoes of the first magic. The Philosopher's Stone, the Resurrection Stone, and the various Horcruxes are all products of ancient techniques, perfected over centuries, yet still connected to primal magic. Nicolas Flamel's alchemy, for instance, demonstrates that even modern wizards can touch the legacy of the first sorcerers, bridging human ingenuity with primordial force. In Tolkien, the Rings of Power serve a similar function, objects imbued with songs of creation, their very existence bending reality according to ancient design. But it is not only artifacts and institutions that preserve ancient magic. It also resides in instinctive wizards. Harry, for example, demonstrates magic before formal instruction. He performs spells subconsciously, floating glass, inflating Aunt Marge, communicating with snakes, and later exhibits protection and connection beyond the capacity of spells alone. This is magic inherited not from books or teachers, but from the echoes of a deep current, a lineage of primal power stretching back to the first sorcerers. Even Voldemort, in his dark ambition, taps into this legacy. His Horcrux's obsession with immortality and capacity for destructive power demonstrate that the dangerous arts of the first wizards still exist, if corrupted. He shows what happens when instinctive or ancient knowledge is divorced from morality and restraint. Magic without ethical grounding is perilous, whether wielded by Merlin's successors or by a Dark Lord. Interestingly, the wizarding world continues to wrestle with these remnants. Ministry regulations, protective enchantments, and the very structure of magical education aim to balance power and responsibility, echoing the first sorcerer's lessons. Hogwarts may appear whimsical with moving staircases and talking portraits. But every charm, ward, and restriction is a safeguard, a nod to the understanding that magic is potent and often dangerous. Even today, magical research uncovers hints of spells beyond known canon. Ancient runes, obscure grimoires, and relics hidden in vaults suggest that fragments of lost magic still await rediscovery. A single scholar, careful and wise, might stumble upon a spell from a first sorcerer that could alter reality, bending it closer to its raw, untamed state. And yet, the risk remains. Power without comprehension, knowledge without judgment, intent without discipline. These are the traps the first sorcerers built to guard their secrets. Ultimately, the echoes of ancient magic serve as both inspiration and warning. They remind wizards that the roots of their craft reach deep into history, far beyond classrooms and textbooks. They whisper that magic, at its heart, is a dialogue with the universe itself, a conversation that began before humans codified it, before Hogwarts existed, and before the world as we know it took shape. The modern wizard, knowingly or not, participates in that dialogue. Each spell, each charm, and each act of magical creation carries with it the weight of history, the lessons of Merlin, and the echoes of the first sorcerer's daring and wisdom. And while much has been tamed, much remains wild, powerful, and waiting. As our journey comes to an end, one truth becomes clear. The magic that shaped the earliest wizards is never truly gone. It has been hidden, codified, and refined, yet its echoes persist in spells, in artifacts, in instinctive acts of power, and in the very structure of the magical world. The first sorcerers, with their daring and wisdom, laid the foundation for everything that followed, from Merlin's guidance to Hogwarts' protective charms, from Flamel's alchemy to the songs and spells that quietly shape reality around us. Tolkien teaches us that creation and power are inseparable, that every note, every word, every gesture carries weight beyond understanding. Rowling echoes this lesson. Magic responds not just to words, but to will, emotion, and moral choice. The first wizards discovered this truth in its rawest form, and they paid a price for it. Their knowledge, their lost spells, their daring experiments became both a gift and a warning to all who followed. Even today, every time a wizard performs a charm, defends a friend, or taps into instinctive magic, they are participating in the legacy of those who came before. The songs of the Ainur, the whispers of Merlin, the hidden protections of ancient spells, all of these remind us that magic is not merely learned. It is inherited, practiced, and lived. It is a dialogue, one that began before history, before schools, before even the first written spells. And yet, a question remains, a question that lingers in the shadows of every library, behind every protective ward, and in the recesses of the most intuitive minds. What else lies hidden? What spells, what words, what power remain buried, waiting for the right mind, or the wrong one, to awaken them? The first sorcerers left their mark on reality itself, but much of their knowledge is still beyond reach, a promise and a threat intertwined. Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is humility. To touch magic is to touch something eternal, fragile, and immensely powerful. The first wizards mastered this balance, and their echoes challenge modern wizards to do the same, to wield knowledge with care, to respect the weight of intention, and to remember that the wild, untamed magic of the past is still present, waiting, watching, and whispering. So, as we close this chapter, we are left with wonder and caution. The first sorcerers may be gone, but their magic lingers in spells, in artifacts, and in hearts brave enough to seek it. And if you listen closely, if you pay attention to the currents beneath the familiar, you might just hear the faintest echo of a spell older than time itself, reminding you that magic is never tamed, only understood, and only by those who dare to seek its depths.